So everybody knows that I love Cyberpunk. I love Cyberpunk to death. It's one of my favorite games, and we're going to be watching a video on the evolution of Cyberpunk.
Was sponsored by Squarespace.
Bro, I see so much Squarespace.
In 1982, Blade Runner came out in movie theaters.
Blade Runner!
It was in 1984, with the release of William Gibson's debut novel titled Neuromancer, that most people agree the genre of cyberpunk came into its own. It was a momentous achievement for the genre, and for Gibson himself, who's now considered one of the founding fathers of cyberpunk. Drawing on trends from the real world, like punk culture and computer hackers, Cyberpunk did away with the idea of a utopian society and imagined a much darker, yet very entertaining future.
Which I do prefer. I think that's the best course of action. I think personally that's the best way to depict a futuristic setting. Now I know the biases is talking, but still.
The first edition of the Cyberpunk game was released in 1988 and would retrospectively come to be known as Cyberpunk 2013, referencing the in-game date setting. The game came with 3 booklets, each explaining the various elements of the game. For example, the third booklet, called Welcome to Night City, covered all aspects of the game world that players would find themselves in. Originally intended to be a placeholder for any major metropolitan area, Night City allowed players to imagine their own dark, crime-ridden city to further immerse themselves in the game. In the next edition of the game, however, the city was expanded into a fictitious location with its own district history. The follow-up game, Cyberpunk 2020, was first released in the real-world year of 1990. As you can...
So wait. So Cyberpunk 2020 isn't actually the first... I always thought that Cyberpunk 2020 was the first ever one, like the first tabletop game of Cyberpunk, but I guess I was wrong. I might look at the 2013 one.
Fast forwarding to 2019, the most recent pen and paper RPG released in Cyberpunk's main series is Cyberpunk Red.
Yeah.
Set in 2045, it follows the events of Cyberpunk 2020 and uses a streamlined rule set while introducing new mechanics.
I remember, like, my plan was to play this. I will be playing it sometime this year, but I just don't know when.
Back in 2012, at CD Projekt Red's summer conference, it was announced that the Polish game developer would take on the mammoth task of adapting Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk into an open-world video game.
14 people are dead, 4 others suffered serious injuries. Police have a suspect.
Renowned for its success with the...
Dang, man, I feel old. I feel old looking at that.
The game ended up costing an eye-watering 1.2 billion Polish zloty to produce.
What is that
equal to
equivalent to?
313 million US dollars.
Woo!
This made it one of the most expensive video games of all time. As early as 2013, the first teaser was shown to the world, and to say people were excited would be an understatement. Many people had high hopes and said things like, "This is going to be another game changer. I know it. In CD Projekt Red, we trust." Well, this did not age well. More on that later, though. When a trailer was showcased at E3 2018, it quickly became one of the most anticipated games of all time.
Main issues, sky-high rate of violence, and more people living below the poverty line than anywhere else.
Man. Oh my god, that trailer.
Can't deny it, it's all true. But everybody still wants to live here.
Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh my god, that is still one of the best trailers of all time. I'm not even gonna cap. That is one of the best trailers I have seen. Now, does it live up to his expectations? No, but it's still one of the best trailers.
Even picked up over 100 awards, including Most Wanted Game, Best PC Game, and Best Sony Play.
Should have been a PC game.
Post-release, Cyberpunk 2077 received praise for its narrative, setting, and graphics, but it was heavily criticized for certain themes, including its representation of transgender characters. However, most people
Wait, I'm lost.
were extremely happy with the game after its release and
I don't know about that one.
said things like, "I'm so glad this game was released when it's ready and not a moment sooner." I'm, of course, kidding. The much anticipated release of Cyberpunk 2077 was nothing short of a disaster. The game was buggy, glitchy, and unplayable on many platforms. Players were met with a string of glitches and crashes.
Issues, sky-high rate of violence, and more people living below the poverty line than anywhere else.
Lord have mercy. Let's
Can't deny it, it's
go.
all true. But everybody still wants to live here.
Yes, sir.
They
That's
say
my
he's always got a
Cyberpunk.
promise for you.
Yep.
Might be a lie, an illusion, but it's there, just around the corner,
I remember that moment. I remember that moment.
and it keeps you going.
Ah. Yeah, this is legendary right here. Oh yeah, I remember that one too. That was, oh my god. Very memorable.
It's a city of dreams, and I'm a big dreamer.
Such legendary moments.
This was a huge disappointment for fans of the game who had been waiting for years to get their hands on it. The game went from hype to meme just one day after being released. The game on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One felt more like an open beta than an actual game. Maybe, if we're lucky, we can actually play the full version in 2077. The major issues led to Sony removing the game from the PlayStation Store while CD Projekt patched things up. The game's developers were even subject to investigations and lawsuits for their perceived attempts to downplay the severity of technical problems
Jeez.
before the game's release, causing CD Projekt Red to pay a settlement of $1.85 million.
Which isn't a lot considering like how much they earned from it. I mean, who knows? I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Meanwhile, the PC version received much more praise.
Yeah.
Digital Spy gave the game a perfect score and said, "Cyberpunk 2077 is a fantastic game
I don't think it deserves a perfect score.
that we have never
Current day Cyberpunk, yeah. I think it'll get an 80. Now with the Phantom Liberty DLC, depending on how much they add, it might go up to a 90. And this is coming from a guy who has easily over 100 hours on Cyberpunk.
and is a window into the future of next-gen gaming and what it's capable of."
No.
To complement the video game, a number of digital comics have been released that are set in the same world as Cyberpunk 2077. Published by Dark Horse Comics, they include titles such as Cyberpunk 2077, Big City Dreams, Where's Johnny?, Trauma Team, and Blackout. If you love Cyberpunk but aren't much of a comic book fan,
Edge Runners is. I love Edge Runners.
you can also watch Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the anime, which premiered on Netflix in September 2022. A standalone 10-episode story, it follows a street kid named David who's just trying to survive in the tech-obsessed, body modification-heavy metropolis that is Night City. Having everything to lose, he chooses to become an edge runner, aka an outlaw, also known as a cyberpunk. With the release of the animation, there came the Edge Runners update for the game. Not only were various fixes and improvements made, but it also added new Edge Runner-inspired content to the game, including new clothing, weapons, and missions.
Balance, friendship, love.
The hell else are we supposed to fight for?
Scheduled for release in 2023 is a paid expansion for the game called Phantom Liberty.
Can't
it is
wait.
said to be a major addition to the game for the 9th generation of video game consoles.
That I shall faithfully serve the new United States of America.
That I shall faithfully serve the new United States of America.
On behalf of all Americans, I thank you for your service.
But there is more exciting news. Developer CD Projekt announced they're creating sequels to both The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077.
Let's go.
Squarespace is the perfect platform for anyone.
There's no way you pop a Squarespace ad at the end. Is that it?
2077 had a shaky start, to say the least. I'm glad the developers haven't given up on the game and continue to push it forward. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the cyberpunk genre, and I can't wait to see how it continues further into the future. I hope you had as much fun watching this video as we did making it. If you enjoyed the video, you might also like the evolution of video game graphics, Grand Theft Auto, or Assassin's Creed. Thanks for watching.
Pretty good video. I did enjoy that. Hopefully Phantom Liberty lives up to its hype, and I really hope that CDPR makes the next Cyberpunk game what Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to be. But overall, good video.